A shadow passes overhead, sudden, silent, unmistakable. Somewhere deep within the brain, ancient circuits flare to life. Muscles tense, breath shortens, heart quickens. These are the first stirrings of a response shaped over millions of years, the instinct to fight, flee, or freeze. In the wild, survival often depended on this rapid mobilization, a cascade of biological events designed to confront danger or escape it. Yet, in the world we inhabit today, threats seldom look like predators lurking in the underbrush. Instead, they come in the form of deadlines, social pressures, or a flood of information that rarely lets up. The same physiological machinery once honed for survival now responds to modern challenges, often in ways that puzzle or overwhelm us. Understanding this stress response, its roots, mechanisms, and effects, reveals not just how we react to the world, but why we do so, and what it means for our well-being. Imagine standing at the edge of a shadowy forest as dusk settles, a sudden rustle in the undergrowth sending your heart racing. In that moment, your body is primed for action, muscles tense, breath quickens, and your senses sharpen. This immediate, visceral reaction is the essence of the stress response, a deeply ancient system shaped by evolution to keep us alive. While today's threats may appear as looming deadlines or blaring alarms, the roots of this response reach far back into prehistory, molded by dangers that were far more immediate and tangible. The concept of the fight, flight, or freeze response was first described in detail by physiologist Walter Cannon in 1914. He observed that animals, including humans, react to threats with a suite of physiological changes. These changes, orchestrated by the sympathetic nervous system and the adrenal medulla, prepare the body for one of three actions: to fight, to flee, or, in some cases, to freeze. The release of adrenaline and other stress hormones floods the bloodstream, fueling muscles with energy and sharpening alertness. This process is not unique to humans. It marks the first stage of the general adaptation syndrome, a foundational survival mechanism present in vertebrates and some other organisms. Evolutionary biologists consider this response a cornerstone of animal survival, honed over millions of years. Throughout deep geologic time, creatures that could quickly detect and react to threats, whether predators, rivals, or environmental dangers, were more likely to survive and reproduce. The fight, flight, or freeze response is not merely a human trait. It is an inheritance we share with much of the animal kingdom, a testament to its effectiveness in keeping organisms alive in a perilous world. What makes the human stress response especially fascinating is how it has been shaped and amplified by our evolutionary journey. Research comparing humans and our close primate relatives, such as chimpanzees, shows that both species exhibit a heightened fight-or-flight response compared to other primates. This increased sensitivity may have been driven by selective pressures unique to our evolutionary history, pressures such as intergroup aggression and even warfare. On a genetic level, this is linked to decreased expression of the ADRA2C gene, which helps modulate the activity of the sympathetic nervous system. In essence, our evolutionary past may have fine-tuned our bodies and brains to be especially vigilant and sometimes reactive in the face of danger. The architecture of this ancient system is embedded in the very structure of our brains. At its core lies a primitive, fast-acting threat detection network designed to respond automatically and instinctively, bypassing slower, conscious thought. Our brains are still wired for the kinds of threats early humans faced: stalking predators, venomous snakes, and rival clans. When a threat is detected, the amygdala, a small but crucial brain structure, acts as a central alarm bell. It rapidly assesses sensory information and, if danger is perceived, signals other brain regions and the body to prepare for immediate action. The amygdala's signals activate the brainstem and the sympathetic nervous system. The adrenal medulla, perched atop the kidneys, releases adrenaline and noradrenaline into the bloodstream. Heart rate and blood pressure surge, blood is diverted to the muscles, and the senses become acutely focused. This physiological cascade is automatic and remarkably fast, allowing for split-second decisions that can mean the difference between life and death. The freeze response, often overlooked, is just as critical. In many situations, remaining motionless can help an animal or a human avoid detection by a predator. Freezing is not a sign of indecision, but an adaptive response built into the defense cascade. Neural circuits in the brain, especially those connecting the amygdala and brainstem, control the balance between freezing, fleeing, and fighting, enabling flexible shifts between defensive modes depending on the situation. Animal studies have shown that both environment and experience influence which defensive behavior is chosen. For example, a mouse that has previously escaped from danger might be more likely to flee the next time it senses a threat, while one that has been cornered may be more likely to freeze or fight. These behaviors are not just learned, many are innate, encoded in the wiring of the brain. Animals can pick up subtle cues from their surroundings or from the behavior of others in their group, triggering fear and corresponding defensive actions even without direct experience. This ability to learn from others and react to nuanced signals is a significant evolutionary advantage, allowing individuals to avoid danger without suffering harm themselves. Humans retain these ancient mechanisms, but our modern world is filled with threats very different from those our ancestors faced. While the stress response evolved to handle immediate, physical dangers like the snap of a twig signaling a lurking predator, today's stressors are often chronic and abstract. The same system that once rallied our bodies to outrun lions now reacts to social anxieties, traffic jams, and overflowing inboxes. In a sense, our brains are still operating with Stone Age programming, interpreting modern challenges through the lens of ancient survival. Research into how we emotionally evaluate threats reveals another layer of complexity. Our ancestors developed not only physiological responses to immediate harm manifested as fear, but also responses to potential sources of infection, such as disgust. This integration of fear and the so-called behavioral immune system reflects an evolutionary strategy to cope with a range of dangers. Ancestral threats like predatory animals and modern threats like electricity or car accidents evoke different patterns of emotional response. Fear, it appears, is more context-dependent, shaped by direct experience and specific cues, while disgust is often more hardwired, serving as a general safeguard against disease and contamination. These responses are not just relics of the past. They form the basis of what some researchers call the defense cascade, a sequence of reactions from freezing to fighting or fleeing, deeply conserved across species. Understanding this cascade has important implications for clinical science, particularly in the realm of stress-related disorders. When the stress response is triggered too frequently or in inappropriate contexts, it can contribute to anxiety, panic, and other mental health challenges. The very system that once protected us from predators can, in the modern era, become a source of suffering. Despite centuries of civilization and technological advancement, the biology of stress remains largely unchanged. Our ancient brains, shaped by the harsh realities of survival, continue to wield a powerful influence over our reactions. When startled by a sudden noise or faced with danger, real or imagined, our bodies still respond as if our lives depend on it. This enduring legacy is a reminder of our evolutionary past and a testament to the remarkable adaptability of life in the face of threat. In the end, the fight, flight, or freeze response is both a gift and a challenge. It allowed our ancestors to navigate a dangerous world, and it continues to shape our emotions, our health, and our behavior. Understanding its origins, its mechanisms, and its role in our lives today can help us appreciate not only how we survived, but also how we might better manage the stresses of the world we now inhabit. Imagine, for a moment, the split second when a shadow darts across your path or you hear an unexpected crash behind you. Before you even consciously register what has happened, an intricate chain of events is already unfolding inside your body, a cascade of biological signals and chemical messengers primed to tip the scales toward survival. This is the stress response in action, a marvel of integrated physiology that transforms perception into action in the blink of an eye. At the heart of this process is the brain's appraisal system, with the amygdala playing a central role. When a potential threat is detected, the amygdala springs into action, rapidly sending alarm signals to other parts of the brain. In response, the hypothalamus acts as a master conductor, orchestrating the body's reaction by engaging both neural and hormonal systems. This is not a solitary event. Rather, it is a symphony involving the interplay of the brain, the nervous system, and a suite of hormones that ready the body for a range of possible outcomes: fight, flight, or freeze. The first wave of this response is managed by the autonomic nervous system, which is divided into two branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic branch is responsible for the so-called fight or flight reaction. It sends rapid electrical signals through nerves that reach nearly every organ in the body, delivering a clear message: prepare for action. Almost instantly, the adrenal medulla, the inner part of the adrenal glands, releases a surge of catecholamines, namely adrenaline and noradrenaline, into the bloodstream. These hormones act as chemical messengers, increasing heart rate, sharpening alertness, and prompting the liver to release glucose for immediate energy. The entire body pivots into a state of readiness, with blood flow redirected to the muscles and pupils widening to enhance vision. But this is only the beginning. While the sympathetic nervous system delivers a swift, short-lived jolt, another system is preparing for a more sustained response. This is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, a trio of organs that communicate via hormonal signals. Once the hypothalamus is activated, it secretes corticotropin-releasing hormone, which travels to the pituitary gland. The pituitary, in turn, releases adrenocorticotropic hormone into the bloodstream, signaling the adrenal cortex, the outer layer of the adrenal glands, to secrete cortisol. This process unfolds over minutes rather than seconds, but its effects are far-reaching and crucial for maintaining the body's readiness during ongoing stress. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and for good reason. Its release mobilizes energy stores, ensuring that glucose and fatty acids are available to fuel muscles in the brain. It also modulates blood pressure, suppresses non-essential functions like digestion and certain immune responses, and helps maintain fluid balance. The longer the threat persists, the more important cortisol's role becomes, allowing the body to sustain heightened alertness and physical capacity beyond the initial adrenaline surge. The interplay between adrenaline and cortisol, one acting quickly, the other more slowly, demonstrates the body's ability to adapt to both immediate danger and prolonged challenges. Yet, not everyone responds to stress in exactly the same way. Although the fight-or-flight reaction is often highlighted, the freeze response is just as deeply embedded in our biology. In situations where escape or confrontation seems impossible, the nervous system may instead trigger sudden immobilization. This freeze state is believed to be a defensive mechanism, mediated by specific neural circuits and hormonal changes that can sometimes increase survival by making the individual less noticeable or less appealing to a predator. The choice between fight, flight, or freeze depends on a complex integration of sensory input, past experiences, and ongoing assessment of the environment, all processed in the brain's emotional and decision-making centers. The actions of the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems are not strictly oppositional. While the sympathetic system accelerates bodily functions, the parasympathetic system acts as a counterbalance, promoting relaxation and recovery once the threat has passed. After the initial surge, the parasympathetic branch works to restore equilibrium, slowing heart rate, resuming digestion, and returning the body to a stable, energy-conserving state. Research indicates that these two systems can sometimes be co-activated or work in tandem, especially as the body transitions from high alert to recovery. This dynamic interplay helps explain individual differences in how people experience and recover from stress. The stress response is not limited to nerves and hormones alone. Communication between the brain and body extends to organs such as the heart and immune system, with signals traveling in both directions. During stress, the cardiovascular system adapts by increasing cardiac output and redirecting blood flow, while the immune system may initially be suppressed to conserve resources for immediate survival. Over time, if the stress response continues unabated, these changes can shift from adaptive to maladaptive, with potential consequences for health and well-being. Beyond adrenaline and cortisol, the body's response to stress involves a host of other hormones and signaling molecules. Growth hormone and prolactin can surge, contributing to energy mobilization and modulation of the immune response. The precise mix of hormones released and the timing of their effects depends on the nature and duration of the stressor, as well as the individual's internal physiological state. For example, metabolic conditions such as hunger or fatigue can shape how strongly the HPA axis responds to a given threat. As stress hormones course through the body, their effects are felt in nearly every organ and tissue, muscles tense, ready for action or stillness. Breathing becomes rapid and shallow, optimizing oxygen intake. The senses sharpen, with the brain prioritizing information relevant to survival. Even the smallest details, sweaty palms, a dry mouth, the urge to pace or withdraw, are physical echoes of this ancient machinery. These responses are not arbitrary. Each serves a functional purpose, increasing the odds of survival in situations where seconds matter. Despite the sophistication of this system, it is designed for acute challenges, not the chronic, low-level stressors so common in modern life. When the stress response is triggered repeatedly or fails to shut off, the same mechanisms that once ensured survival can contribute to health problems ranging from hypertension to metabolic disorders. Still, at its core, the stress response remains a testament to the body's remarkable capacity for adaptation, a tightly regulated dance between brain, hormones, and nerves that prepares us moment by moment to meet the demands of a complex world. Understanding the fight, flight, or freeze response in all its physiological detail reveals not only the depth of our evolutionary heritage, but also the dynamic, moment-to-moment adjustments that keep us alive. Whether we are facing real danger or merely anticipating it, the same biological pathways converge, priming us to act and, when the time is right, to recover. The next time your heart pounds in your chest or your palms sweat at a moment of uncertainty, know that you are witnessing the legacy of countless generations, a living blueprint for survival, written in the language of nerves and hormones. In today's world, the stress response is as present as ever, though the dangers that trigger it have changed dramatically. Instead of lions lurking in the grass, we now face a barrage of emails, looming deadlines, relentless traffic, and the constant hum of social and financial worries. Yet our bodies react as if any of these could mean immediate harm. The ancient patterns of fight, flight, or freeze now play out in boardrooms, on crowded highways, and even within the privacy of our own thoughts. This mismatch between our biological inheritance and the realities of modern life lies at the heart of the stress epidemic so many people experience. The stress response is fundamentally a survival mechanism, but in the 21st century, it is often triggered by situations that are not life-threatening. For example, a tense conversation with a supervisor or a string of notifications on a smartphone can set off the same cascade of physiological changes that our ancestors relied on in moments of mortal peril. These modern stressors, while rarely physically dangerous, can be persistent, intrusive, and inescapable. As a result, the stress response is not just a fleeting burst of energy, it can become a chronic state, leaving the body and mind locked in a prolonged readiness for action that never quite arrives. What makes modern stress so insidious is not its intensity, but its duration and frequency. The very systems designed to protect us can, when activated too often or for too long, begin to wear us down. Chronic stress does not just leave us feeling anxious or irritable, it can have profound effects on nearly every aspect of health. Elevated blood pressure, persistent muscle tension, headaches, and digestive disturbances are just some of the ways the body signals it is under siege. Weight can fluctuate, sleep may become elusive, and the risk of developing heart disease or metabolic problems rises as the body's internal balance is repeatedly disrupted. Central to these changes is the hormone cortisol, which acts as a chemical messenger for ongoing stress. In short bursts, cortisol is adaptive, helping to mobilize energy and sharpen focus. But when stress endures, cortisol levels can remain elevated for extended periods. This prolonged exposure can alter brain circuits involved in mood and memory, affect metabolic processes, and weaken immune function. There is evidence that sustained high cortisol is linked to an increased risk of anxiety, depression, cognitive impairment, and even neurodegenerative diseases. Chronic stress can also leave the nervous system on a kind of hair trigger, making it harder to recover and more sensitive to new stressors. The consequences of this evolutionary mismatch extend to the very circuits that orchestrate the fight, flight, or freeze response. When the brain perceives a threat, whether it is a harsh word from a colleague or an unexpected bill, the same emergency systems are engaged as if a predator had appeared. Heart rate accelerates, muscles tense, and the digestive system slows, regardless of whether action is actually possible or appropriate. Over time, this repeated activation can leave the body in a constant state of alert, with neuroendocrine parameters that may never fully return to baseline. Instead of adapting to the challenge and recovering, the body can remain locked in a maladaptive pattern, increasing the likelihood of illness. The problem is not just physical. Psychosocial stressors, those that arise from our relationships, roles, and self-perceptions, can be just as potent as physical threats in engaging the stress response. Arguments with loved ones, pressures at work, and the struggle to meet expectations all have the power to activate the body's emergency systems. The brain-body connection is so strong that even thinking about a stressful situation can evoke the same physiological reactions as actually experiencing it. When these stressors are chronic, the physiological responses become dysregulated, contributing to a wide range of pathologies and undermining both mental and physical health. The freeze response, often overlooked, also plays an important role in this story. It is not just fight or flight that shape our reactions to danger, but also a third option, immobilization. In some situations, when neither escape nor confrontation seems possible, the body may enter a state of temporary paralysis. This can be adaptive in the face of overwhelming threat, but in modern contexts, freeze responses can become maladaptive. For instance, people facing ongoing trauma or chronic stress may find themselves feeling numb, detached, or unable to act, which can be especially problematic in psychological disorders such as post-traumatic stress disorder. Modern stressors differ from ancient ones in ways that make them harder to manage. Unlike the immediate physical dangers that shaped our biology, today's stressors often cannot be resolved through action. We cannot run from a mortgage payment or physically fight a looming deadline. This lack of resolution means that the stress response, once triggered, may have no clear endpoint. Instead of a quick surge followed by recovery, many people experience ongoing activation, with the body's emergency systems engaged for hours or even days at a time. This is one reason why modern stress is so closely linked to symptoms such as insomnia, chronic pain, and digestive problems. The health effects of chronic stress are wide-ranging. Elevated blood pressure and heart rate can contribute to cardiovascular disease, while persistent muscle tension may lead to headaches or musculoskeletal disorders. The digestive system, often slowed or disrupted during stress, can develop problems such as irritable bowel syndrome. Weight may rise or fall as hormonal changes influence appetite and metabolism. The immune system, initially suppressed during stress, can become dysregulated over time, increasing susceptibility to infections or even contributing to autoimmune conditions. Sleep is particularly vulnerable to the effects of chronic stress. Elevated cortisol and persistent worry can disrupt the body's natural rhythms, making it difficult to fall asleep or stay asleep. Over time, poor sleep compounds the effects of stress, impairing cognitive function, mood, and overall resilience. The mind-body nature of stress means that emotional and physical symptoms often reinforce one another, creating a cycle that can be difficult to break. Not all stress is harmful, of course. Short-term stress can be energizing, sharpening focus, and enhancing performance. It is the chronic, unrelieved stress of modern life that poses the greatest risk. When the stress response is activated repeatedly without the opportunity for resolution or recovery, it can lead to a cascade of health problems. The body, designed for brief emergencies, is not equipped to handle the never-ending barrage of modern challenges. There are, however, ways to mitigate the impact of chronic stress. Building resilience through healthy lifestyle choices, strong social connections, and skills such as acceptance and realistic expectations can help the body adapt more effectively. Nutrition, regular exercise, and adequate sleep all play vital roles in maintaining the body's ability to recover from stress. Identifying personal stress triggers, organizing time effectively, and accepting what cannot be changed are practical strategies for reducing the burden of daily stressors. In some cases, seeking help from others or professional support can make a significant difference. Ultimately, the story of stress in the modern world is one of adaptation and challenge. Our ancient biology meets contemporary life in ways that can leave us vulnerable, but also offer opportunities for growth and resilience. By understanding how the fight, flight, or freeze response operates in the context of today's stressors, we can begin to develop strategies that honor our biology while meeting the demands of our time. The key is not to eliminate stress entirely, a near impossible task, but to learn how to manage its effects, recover from its demands, and support both mind and body as we navigate the complexities of modern life. To thrive in a world that constantly tests our limits, understanding how to manage the fight, flight, or freeze response is not just a matter of comfort, it is essential for resilience, health, and long-term well-being. Science offers a wealth of strategies to help us recognize the signs of stress as they arise, intervene before those ancient circuits spiral out of control, and cultivate the inner resources necessary to bounce back from adversity. The key lies in translating our awareness of biology into practical, everyday habits that gently guide the nervous system away from chronic alarm and toward recovery, growth, and adaptability. The first, and perhaps most important, step is learning to notice the unique ways stress appears in your body and mind. For some, it is a racing heart and shallow breathing. For others, it is irritability, forgetfulness, or a sudden urge to withdraw. These signals are not random. They are your body's early warning system honed over millennia to alert you to both real and perceived threats. Recognizing these cues in real time is a skill that can be sharpened with practice and intention. Evidence suggests that simply labeling your stress, saying, "I feel tension rising," or "my hands are cold and clammy," can create a small but meaningful buffer between sensation and automatic reaction, opening the door to self-directed action rather than reflexive overdrive. Once you have recognized the signs, the next step is to interrupt the stress response and invite the body's natural calming systems to take over. Research points to several powerful techniques designed to counteract the physiological surge of fight, flight, or freeze. Among the most accessible is breath focus. This involves shifting your attention to the physical sensations of breathing, slowing the pace, and deepening each inhale and exhale. Doing so encourages the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's built-in brake pedal to ease tension, slow the heart rate, and restore a sense of safety. Even a few minutes of intentional, slow breathing can begin to unravel the knot of stress that forms in the chest or belly. Guided imagery and body scans are other evidence-based practices that can help. In a body scan, you systematically direct your attention to different parts of the body, noticing sensations without judgment and inviting relaxation where tension is found. Guided imagery, on the other hand, uses the mind's eye to conjure soothing or empowering scenes, perhaps a quiet forest or a memory of accomplishment. These techniques leverage the brain's remarkable ability to redirect attention, shifting focus from imagined threats or ruminations to a more grounded, restorative state. Over time, regular practice can make it easier to recover from stress, even when challenges feel overwhelming. Physical activity is another potent antidote. Science consistently finds that movement, whether a brisk walk, a dance around the living room, or a more structured exercise routine, helps metabolize stress hormones and restore equilibrium. The benefits are not limited to the body. Movement releases neurochemicals that lift mood and sharpen focus, providing a natural counterweight to the inertia or agitation of stress. Even gentle stretching or yoga, which combines movement with breath and mindful attention, can elicit what researchers call the relaxation response, a state that is physiologically opposed to fight or flight. Self-care is not a luxury in this equation, it is a cornerstone of resilience. Attending to basic needs, adequate sleep, nourishing food, and periods of rest creates the internal conditions that allow the stress response to wind down naturally. Small routine changes can have outsized effects. For example, adjusting your daily schedule to include short breaks, or setting aside time to enjoy a favorite hobby, signals to your nervous system that you are safe and in control. These signals, in turn, foster a sense of agency, further reducing the likelihood that stress will escalate unchecked. Evidence also suggests that laughter, social connection, and even brief moments of joy can disrupt the cycle of chronic stress, providing emotional fuel to weather future storms. Expressive writing is another tool supported by science. The simple act of putting thoughts and feelings onto paper can serve as a release valve, reducing psychological pressure and clarifying what is truly at stake. This practice has been shown to improve mood and even physical health, especially when used regularly. By articulating worries, hopes, or frustrations, you can gain perspective, identify patterns, and sometimes discover the silver linings in difficult situations. Finding meaning or reframing adversity in a more positive light is a hallmark of resilient individuals. This does not mean ignoring pain or pretending that hardship is easy, but rather making space for growth and adaptation alongside struggle. Acceptance, too, is vital. Many experts emphasize the power of accepting what cannot be changed. This is not resignation, but a gentle acknowledgement of reality, freeing up energy that would otherwise be spent in futile resistance. Acceptance paves the way for focusing on what is within your control, your actions, your responses, and your choices in the face of uncertainty. Research underscores that resilience grows when we set new, achievable goals, even in small increments, and when we celebrate progress rather than perfection. Social connection is a powerful buffer against stress. Reaching out to others, whether friends, family, or support networks, can alleviate feelings of isolation and provide practical and emotional support. Sharing your struggles, learning from the experiences of others, and offering help in return all reinforce a sense of belonging and purpose, key ingredients in the recipe for resilience. If professional help is needed, seeking it is itself an act of strength, not weakness. Meditation and mindfulness, practiced regularly, are associated with improved stress management. Mindfulness involves observing thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations as they arise, without judgment or immediate reaction. This stance of curious attention can interrupt habitual fight, flight, or freeze patterns and foster greater flexibility in responding to life's demands. Over time, mindfulness can strengthen the capacity to remain grounded even in the midst of chaos, a quality that lies at the heart of resilience. Some find comfort in repetitive prayer or spiritual practices, which can serve as an anchor during turbulent times. These rituals provide structure, meaning, and a sense of continuity, qualities that help the mind and body recover from stress. Each of these methods, whether secular or spiritual, works by activating the body's natural capacity for relaxation and repair. Learning from past experiences is another resilience strategy. Reflecting on challenges you have overcome can remind you of your capacity to adapt and persevere. This perspective can be especially valuable when facing new or ongoing adversity, bolstering confidence and encouraging creative problem-solving. In practice, resilience is not about avoiding stress altogether, but about developing a toolkit of strategies that allow you to recover and grow in its aftermath. Building resilience is an ongoing process, one that involves self-awareness, routine self-care, supportive relationships, and the willingness to face fears rather than flee or freeze in their shadow. Evidence indicates that while we cannot always choose what happens to us, we can choose how we respond, and with each choice, we strengthen the neural and psychological pathways of resilience. As you move forward, remember that managing the fight, flight, or freeze response is a dynamic journey. There will be times when stress feels overwhelming and times when it recedes into the background. By cultivating awareness, practicing evidence-based interventions, and nurturing supportive connections, you can harness the wisdom of your body's ancient systems while adapting to the challenges of modern life. In doing so, you transform stress from a perpetual threat into a catalyst for growth, healing, and well-being.